Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Okay, everybody, we're back. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are, however you are, whomever you are. Spiritual Experience. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Spotify, definitely. Apple Podcasts, Google, everywhere. Pandora, we're all over the map. Facebook, you can find our Facebook page at The Spiritual Experience. You can listen to episodes. They're all up there. Anyway, we have a super duper guest today. Somebody I've known since they started coming around. Yeah, she's like a little sister to me, man. I watched her struggle. I watched her, blossom. I watched her get angry. I watched her get happy. I've seen her get sad. And she's still here. So everybody say hello to Liad. Liad, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
All right.
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Yeah. We're both Jews, so we're gonna try not to talk over each other for you guys who are goy. Because you'll never get it. But all right, first things first. Where are you from?
I am from Borough Park, Brooklyn.
All right. Super
religious area.
And what was it like growing up in your house?
In my house, it was very chaotic. I saw a lot of things that I shouldn't have seen. I have 3 older brothers who were pretty rebellious. My house would always smell like weed. There was always alcohol in my house. It was the party house.
In Borough Park.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of supervision. So growing up like that, my parents made sure, so I have 3 brothers and I have a sister. So my parents made sure that the girls went to an Orthodox yeshiva school. And me and my sister went to an all-girls school. And, they would be teaching us all these things, like, you have to pray at a certain time, all these rules about Judaism. And at home, it just wasn't like that. Like we would eat McDonald's, we would do whatever we wanted to do. And
is that your phone?
Yes.
You need to turn it off.
Sorry.
It's okay. That's the Bitcoin alert. Maybe it's going down. What is that? Maybe it's in your pocket.
It is, sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't know it was on.
Oh, now you're taking pictures? Even better. Okay. Yeah, so you guys are going to yeshiva. What about your brothers? Are they going to religious school too or no?
No, they went to public school. So I guess from a young age.
That's so weird.
Yeah. From a young age, I felt like I was kind of living a double life. Like I had to pretend to be this person in school, like this religious person, and then at home, it just wasn't like that. My family didn't grow up religious. Right.
So did you ever ask your mom or your parents, like, why they even sent you there if the boys didn't have to go?
I think that they wanted us to have a better foundation, be a better Jew. Like to them, it was important. You marry a Jewish person, and you keep the major holidays. I don't even know what they were thinking. I couldn't tell you what they were thinking.
Right.
I really don't know.
It sounds wild. So when did drugs and alcohol enter your life for yourself?
I guess I was around 16.
Okay.
Me and my best friend, every weekend we had this thing where we would just go to the movies and go out to eat. Every weekend we'd go to Sheepshead Bay to Fridays, and we would go to the movies after. And that was the thing that we did on a Saturday night, and then we were just like sick of doing that every single week because we had nothing better to do. And I remember walking, on Fort Hamilton to the Mini Mart one night, and, this big guy, I don't know if I should say his name. I'm not going to say his name, but basically he's like, hey, you guys want to smoke some weed? And I was like, I in my head, I knew it was wrong, but she's like, fuck it, let's do it. Why not? And, I remember we smoked weed with this guy. And I loved it. Like it was, I loved it immediately. Like
Right away.
It was the best thing. And ever since then, I was smoking every day. Like it wasn't just like, you know,
There was no progression.
no, it was just like I liked it so much. And I thought that I would never stop, you know, and,
What about your friend? Was she had like the same kind of thing?
She was like the same thing.
Oh,
we
my
were
God.
two peas in a pod. They used to call her nut. They used to call me maniac and her nut job.
Oh my God. That's perfect. So what happens? Now you're smoking weed every day. You still going to school? You still doing the right thing, or what's the story?
No, so I think that I was looking for some kind of escape. Looking back, I feel that way, but. You know, when I first entered high school, I was about 15 or whatever. My sister had a manic episode where we had to hospitalize her, and it was very scary to see someone that you know your whole life and seem to put together just lose it like that. Like really, you know, she was having like a lot of messianic thoughts, like she thought she was the Messiah, and like
Right.
we had to like tranquilize her, like they had to sedate her in the hospital and she had to be hospitalized. And I was like, that at 15 your mind is pretty fragile to see something like that, you know.
And how old was she?
She was, I guess she was in her 20, maybe 22, 23.
It's sad.
So that was scary. And then, you know, my father fell very ill. He was a diabetic and he was constantly hospitalized. And, you know, he was sick most of my, you know, high school experience, you know, and he finally passed away when I was 18. So during this time I was, you know, and my brother had just been arrested when I was in 8th grade. He was arrested for, you know, drug conspiracy. So he was, you know, it was just a lot going on in my house, like, you know, to deal with at a young age like that. You don't really know what's happening.
It's like all these bombs are going off.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is
You're the
normal.
baby.
I don't know. I don't even know what's, you know, it was just very scary, I guess. But I didn't know how to identify any feelings, you know? Like in my head, I was like this strong person, I guess. Like I thought I was like invincible, you know, and I could handle anything. But really, I was like shutting down, you know?
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you look at it from like an outside perspective, and you just say, okay, like it's no surprise that the weed gave you that kind of relief or anything else. Like if you see all that stuff going on, and then you have like a 15 or 16-year-old person who's just going through like adolescence and puberty and all this other shit, and like it's like, dude, man, like how much can a human take, especially a young one who's reliant on all these other people? So, I mean, but you just didn't know that you'd become an addict.
No, but you know, I don't even say those things as an excuse. I don't think that it matters what happened to me. I think this would have happened anyway.
Right.
Because the reason I drank, like the way that I drank and the way that I smoked, whatever it was you gave me, I wanted more of it. And it was even like all this happened when I was around 16 and I had my sister's ID. So I would be going to clubs at 16, you know, in the city, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. There'd be promoters there. We would drink, you know, and I would always want more. I'd be the girl throwing, and I didn't really love to drink, but I would drink to get drunk, drive drunk. I would go to the bathroom, throw up, come back and drink more. I never said no.
What clubs were your favorites?
I used to go to 51. Was that what it was called? 54?
Okay.
I forgot. I mean, this is years ago, but the Grand we used to go to a lot. So I would be doing that constantly. You know, I drank alcoholically from a young age.
Right.
You know, there was never enough. So I think for me, I have this thing where I just want more, and because I like it.
No matter what.
No matter, like, it has nothing to do with what I went through. Like, I just loved it, you know, and that's why I did it.
Right. So when did your sister get settled? Or how did
Now,
that happen?
thank God, she's okay. You know, she's on the right medication. She has 4 beautiful children. She's married. Everything's wonderful.
Right.
But
Here, but here you are. You're going through the city. You're drinking. You're driving. You're doing all this stuff with her ID. And then what happened? Did you finish school?
I finished school by the skin of my teeth, basically. But I wasn't going a lot. But I went to this Orthodox school where they basically just passed me, So I got, and then I went to college for like 2 years. And there was a progression. I got into relationships, and they weren't necessarily healthy, because I had my own issues.
Right.
But I remember constantly having an escape. Like, I had an outlet. I never stopped smoking weed. I would drink whenever I went out. And I started taking pills.
Were you going to school in the city, or did you go away?
No, I went to Kingsborough.
Okay. On the water,
Yeah.
Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I had some experimentation with some prescription pills, like you hang out with enough of the wrong people, they go, oh, try this. They would give me Xanax, they would give me Vicodin, whatever it was. I remember just sitting at my friend's house one night, and she's like, oh, my mother just got a boob job. Here, she got Vicodin. Here's a Vicodin. She gives me the Vicodin. And I just remember laying down in her bed, and I was like, I felt like euphoric, and ever since, like, it was the best feeling I've ever had in my life. And ever since then, I was just chasing that feeling for years to come.
Wow. Yeah, so what happens next?
What happens next is I'm my own worst enemy. I create chaos, and I created a lot of situations that just weren't healthy and weren't good. And I ended up having broken ribs, and they prescribed me they prescribed me like a bottle of Vicodin.
Right.
And I started taking that, and I remember, like, when I wouldn't take it, I would start itching, like scratching myself. Like, and I didn't understand, like, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't know anything about it,
Right.
And then...
Are you still living at home when this is going on?
Yeah, I'm living at home, yeah. And...
is anybody noticing, is what I basically wanted to ask.
My mother would find, like, pills in my bag here and there, and I would always say, like, oh, it's my friends. It's like... I don't think she really understood the severity of it. Like, she knew I smoked weed because that was very evident. Like, I would smoke in the house. I didn't give a shit about anything.
Right.
So weed, like, yeah, she knew, but I don't think she knew about the pills, And then basically the prescription ended, and then I found my way. I don't remember how, but of course I found my way. Like, this guy around the block from my house sold pills, so I would start buying Percocet. And then, he'd be like, well, I only have, the 30s now. And he's like, he's like, it's the same thing, just take half. I mean, I'm not going to take half. I go home, I eat the whole thing, and I just remember falling asleep. And then I was like, oh, I want to do that again. And, it just progressed from there. And I started, spending every penny I had on it, Are
you working at the time?
No, I was taking money from my mom. I don't even know how I had money. Like, whatever I could get, like, I would take from my mother. I started doing it with my boyfriend at the time, and it was just like this roller coaster.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it's going pretty downhill. Are your brothers still in the house, or are they out of the house by now?
No, they're out of the house.
So it's just you, your sister, and your mom, and you're, like, in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day.
Mm-hmm.
The chaos, the mess. There's no, when I was in those situations, like, to me, there was, like, no end in sight. It's like, this is my life.
Well, I didn't know what was happening to me at all. I was completely clueless. Like, I didn't know that I was becoming addicted. I didn't know anything about addiction. I just thought that I was unhappy, and
right.
then I would, medicate myself to feel normal. And eventually I started thinking that I was crazy. Like, I'm just going crazy. And then, these pills started becoming very expensive. So I basically said, all right, I'm going to go to the doctor. Now I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to get some help. I start seeing the psychiatrist. And, of course, I'm not honest with him. And he starts putting me on benzos. He gives me, like, I was getting bottles of Xanax now, finishing them in 3 days. They'd be gone, you know. And benzos are kind of, for me, they were worse than the opiates because you black out on them. You don't know what's going on. You become, like, physically sick. And you have, like, all this anxiety that if you don't take it, your anxiety is, like, way worse. So that made me hit rock bottom pretty fast because now I'm, like, addicted to blacking out every night, not knowing what happened, you know, and everyone's telling me what's going on with you. You know, you're not the same person, you know. And
people are starting to really notice now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
because of the benzos, and you're drinking at the same time? Are you, like, trying to mix everything?
I was doing everything. Whatever I could do. You know, anything you
Oblivion,
gave me.
like
Anything
it says
you
in the
gave me,
book.
I would took. I said, all right, there's something wrong here.
How long was that going on?
Like 2 years.
That's a long time.
It was 2 years to black out every night. You know, it was bad. It was very bad. And it's scary. Like when you don't remember anything, like it's scary. But it also got to a point where I stopped asking people, like, what happened last night? What happened last night? What happened last night?
Right.
You know.
Are you still going out, or are you starting to isolate yourself a little bit at a time?
I had one friend who would drive me everywhere that I trusted. You know, and of course, like I turned him into an addict too because I was a nut job. I was like completely. I only cared about myself. You know, I got him. The poor guy started sniffing heroin because, you know, the pills were too expensive.
Right.
You know, I gave him my doctor's number. He'd go get a bottle. You know, and he would, and we'd share. Like when my bottle would run out, we'd eat his bottle. You know, like it was just like it was bad. It was just like you know.
You're like partners in crime.
Yeah.
But like it's not glorious.
No, it was miserable. We never had money, you know, and it was.
It's not romantic.
It wasn't.
Two broke junkies.
No.
Oh man. So my question also is, I'm always interested in, like, you know, if you're in Borough Park and people don't know where that is, like it's, you know, it's a religious neighborhood in Brooklyn. Like when I see people who are religious Jews in recovery in the rooms, like it's always like amazing to me, you know, because like where I grew up, there was a lot of Orthodox and Hasidic Jews. And, you know, I had friends, they used to sell crack to them. So I knew that they were like, you know, some of them we used to call them renegades. Like, oh, here comes a renegade right now, you know, and it's funny, you know, because you know, where I grew up is almost like Crown Heights. It's like it's black people and working class white people and Hasidic Jews in one neighborhood. It's Spring Valley, Muncie, New York. We're right on top of New Square, which is like a whole nother like place, you know. But they would all, you know, so I knew that some of them got down, but I never know what it would be like to be, you know, in that community, and, you know, how they would even look at somebody like you, like, oh, but, you know, you went to school, you have good, you know, they say the same story. You have good family, you went to school, what are you doing, blah, 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 like the whole guilt shit. Like, did they treat you any differently?
Oh, they don't have to treat you like it. First of all, I didn't really give a shit. I was the type of person that I didn't care about anything. Like, that was me. I did not care about anything. Okay? Like, straight up. I didn't care about anything, let alone, and like they were nothing to me. Like I really didn't factor that in.
Right.
But it was internalized in me from a young age. I carried a lot of Jewish guilt, you know, and it really escalated my abuse because I was feeling all this Jewish guilt, like I'm not a good person, I'm not doing this right, I didn't do that right, I'm going to hell, all this stuff.
Right.
And I didn't know where to put that, you know.
Yeah. And yeah, I think like, you know, I said this in another show because it's like the difference, you know, like Jews, like the Jewish guilt is like a birthright.
Yeah.
Like they lather you in it.
Yeah.
And they lather you. And some of it very rightfully so, you know. And the other thing is like, they also, when I was a kid, because I'm like, I'm a Reformed Jew, and like, they would make it almost like, not that you're not trusting other people, but like you almost got to stick with your own kind in some ways. Like they would say, like the way I make fun of it is like, all right, Jesus tells them to turn the other cheek. We say don't give them an inch. Like that's, and they're like very big on that. So, even like my dad would like, he would almost look at me with like, you're being a bad Jew by being a drunken drug addict. Like, not a bad person, you're being a bad Jew. It's so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how do you get to the end?
A lot of pain. The end of my using, a lot of pain, a lot of experimentation. My first rehab I went to because of the blackouts, because of the Xanax.
Did you ask for help, or did they intervene and say, listen, Liad, we got to fucking help you?
It was very clear to everyone else that I had a problem. It was starting to sink in with me too. And I was like, yo, I need a break. I need to take a break. I need to just get my shit together. So I go to my first rehab. They start telling me that
Where was it?
It was I can't tell you the name. Listen, I fried a lot of brain cells.
No, but like, was it in New York, or did you go away?
Upstate.
Okay.
Arms Acres?
Maybe.
Okay, that's where I went. And they started giving me, they planted a seed. Basically, they started telling me I have this disease. I need to go to meetings. I need to stop drinking and using drugs a day at a time.
Were people bringing meetings?
There was groups and there were meetings. I just know that I was not ready to hear what they had to say.
You were just ready for the time out.
Right. I thought I was gonna go there. They were gonna teach me how I can control and my using and my drinking. Like I said, I needed a break, and I was very rebellious, and I wasn't ready to go through life without substances in my system. I had never done that. So I get out of there, and I was like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I can do this on my own. I don't need to go to meetings. So I lasted about 3 months.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and then the thought came, all right, drugs are my problem. I could drink, So that thought came, I could just have a drink, and I did. And let me tell you, for 7 years, my life did not get better. It just got worse and worse and worse. It was like I wasn't living. I was literally just existing, just to drink and get high every single day. My life was just how I could get my next fix, and there was so much pain and emotional bottoms throughout those 7 years. And at this point, I know that I have a problem because I have this seed planted from the rehab. They're telling me, and I'm thinking, like, maybe I do have something wrong with me. Maybe I do have this disease. Like, I can't stop no matter what I do. I am powerless over drugs and alcohol, but I don't know what to do about it. And
right.
I think, all right, well, this is just going to be my life.
So how did you find yourself into the recovery now?
By the grace of God. I remember, I don't know what happened, I guess for a while I was thinking, like, in my head, like, this is coming to an end. This is coming to an end. Like, I remember, like, there were nights where I was like, my breathing was so shallow. Like, I had to remind myself to breathe. Like, I thought that if I went to sleep, I wouldn't wake up. And one day I just wake up out of this 3-day blackout, which was very common for me. Like, I would have blackouts all the time, and I've blacked out many times before, but something happened to me this time where I was just scared to death. Like, I just felt so scared, and I felt like I looked in the mirror, and I felt like I had no soul. I just, like, was completely hopeless. And I finally surrendered, and I asked for help. And I told myself, I'm either going to get help and get sober, or I'm going to kill myself. Those are my options. Because if I can't get sober, I'm just going to die because I can't live like this anymore.
Wow. Yeah. And then, so how did you get the help?
My brother took me to a detox. I was in detox for a week. So I was coming off a lot of stuff. I was coming off of Klonopin, Xanax, Suboxone, opiates, Roxy's, whatever, a bunch of different things. And they keep you in detox when you're especially when you're on benzos. So I was there for like a week. And then I went to South Beach, which was what they basically...
Staten Island, not South Beach, Miami.
Yeah, Staten Island, the rehab. They basically, and I thought, I'm going somewhere, tropical in my head. Like, I don't know anything. I was completely out of my mind. I was, detoxing, and they told me this place saves lives. So I went. I remember, like, it was just a reality check. For me, it humbled me because, like, this is where I ended up. Like, they stripped me naked. I had people, examining my body. For a Jewish girl from Borough Park to, like, feel like that violated and to feel like this is, like, what it is now, like, to go through that and to be in, like, also in your head, like, you think you're better than everybody else. You're always comparing, like, I'm not as bad as this person. I'm not as bad as that person. And then sitting there thinking, like, wow, I'm exactly like these fucking people. Like, this is where I am now. This is what I did to myself. It
had to have been sobering.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience. And, the minute I got there, I wanted to jump out the window. Like, it was very, I felt all this panic. I was panicked. I was like, I can't do this. Like, that's what your disease tells you, especially when you're in grips of it. That's why it's so important to kind of separate yourself and go away, because your mind is like, you can't do this. You got to get the hell out of here. Like, it just wants to flee,
Panic.
It's like fight or flight, right? And it was crazy. I just remember hysterical crying, making a scene. I was like, I gotta get out of here. I can't be here. And luckily for me, they had a lot of good counselors there that, like, sat with me and, talked me down. And I knew that if I left, I would pick up. It wasn't a question, you know what I mean? And I was said, I really got to, like, and my family wasn't going to take me back either. They were like, you got to stay there. You're not coming home. We're not coming to get you.
Good for them.
And everybody thought I was going to leave. Nobody thought I was going to stay in that rehab. I made the girls that were used to being there, like, they were there for like 3 weeks. They were doing groups. They were, like, invested. And I made them, like, and I was so negative and, like, crazy that I was making them, like, want to get high. You know what I mean? Like, I was so toxic,
right.
But then, and what could you do? I was in full-blown withdrawal. It was really bad. I didn't sleep for the whole time I was there, not one night. I was wide awake, and the doctor told me, well, you're coming off opiates. You're not going to sleep, You're not going to sleep. It was normal. Yeah. I just had to tough it out.
Oof. Yeah, that's like the truth. Like, when they tell you the truth that you've been, like, running from for so long, it's so painful.
It was very and I just remember, like, shaking, and you get these leg spasms, and you're, like, sweating and shaking, and you're not eating, and all this stuff. And I just, like, the pain of that was so excruciating. But I remember thinking, like, I need to stay sober because I can never go through this pain again. This is, like, I'm never going to do this. Look, like, you really feel the damage you do to your body and your mind and your soul.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like that when, I stopped doing heroin maybe 3 years before I stopped drinking. And when I stopped, my drinking really got out of control. But, like, when I kicked heroin, and I didn't even have a bad habit. It was like half a bundle a day. Dude, I made a conscious decision that I would never want to go through that withdrawal ever again. That's how bad it was. I told my mom I had the flu. I was in the basement, whatever. But, like, it was just so horrible. But, like, I was not in a controlled environment. So were you participating in any of the stuff at the rehab, or were you just, like, kind of just going through it there?
No, I was participating as much as I could, going through the pain that I was feeling. Every night they would have AA meetings. People would come. It either was AA, NA, and
Did you, like, look forward to them? Like, people coming in from...
I wasn't
you hated it?
Yeah. I was miserable. There was nothing... it was hard for me to sit still. So to be at a meeting every night at 8 o'clock, they would come in, but I listened, and... I would listen to their stories, and it just came down to, I remember just feeling like sitting there and people would come in from AA and they'd be like glowing. You know, they looked like they were sober. And they would share things like, well, you know, 6 months ago I was sitting where you were sitting. I was in here, you know, and it made me like have a spark, because it was like, all right, these people were here too, you know, and they looked like they were glowing. And I just remember thinking like, that's never going to happen for me. You know,
Right.
that's what I thought, you know, and they kept saying the same three things. Like, when you get out of here, you have to make a meeting. You have to make a meeting. You got to get a sponsor. You got to go through the steps. You got to make a meeting. The most important thing is to go to a meeting.
Yeah. So when you got out of there, what'd you do?
I went to a meeting. I was scared. It was so uncomfortable for me. I was so scared. I didn't know what to expect. But I went because I knew that if I, like, held it off, like if I said I'll go tomorrow, I would never have went, you know?
I think that's part of the mental part of the disease. I mean, we always, a lot of people think, and we were talking about this before we started, about like the physical part. Yeah, once you start, you can't stop. But the mental part is like your brain will tell you, oh yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
For people like us, there is no tomorrow.
No.
Like anything that I put off till tomorrow, even now with all the time that I have, like it starts like this little fire in the back of my head of anything that I like really procrastinate on that I should be doing, whatever. It starts like this little, and then it turns into a raging flame weeks down the road because I was avoiding doing something, you know, like I have to. And that's why I need everybody in my life to say, no, these are the things that I have to try and do today. Because the shit that I want to put off is only the stuff that's going to help me.
Yeah.
You know? So you went to your first meeting. What was it like?
It was an anniversary.
What meeting was it?
It was King's Night Workers. And I just remember sitting there thinking, the guy had an anniversary. He was celebrating like 35 years sober. And I just remember thinking, like, if this guy is 35 years sober, what the hell is he doing here? You know, I didn't get it. I really didn't get it.
Especially that meeting, because it's in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And the people who have a lot of time go there, and people who are brand new go there. So people who don't have jobs, people who've retired, or who have their life already set up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
But let me tell you, people were nice to me. They knew I was new. I stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, I ended up, so many women gave me their numbers. They gave me this. They're good over there at the 1 o'clock. They gave me this beginner's like this yellow pamphlet, like a whole starter
packet.
pack. Packet. And I was like, oh, wow, they're being so nice, you know. And I had met Karen, and she became my sponsor. And
wow, first day.
Yeah, first day. And then, thank God. And then she said, what are you doing later? It was a Thursday. She's like, I'm going to pick you up, and I'm going to take you to my home group. So she picks me up, and she takes me to this meeting, keep it fresh. And that's where I got sober. Because there were young people there, you know. I started to see younger people. When I went to the 1 o'clock, there were so many older people, and I just felt like out of place. But this meeting was a lot of young people, so I feel like that was kind of helpful for me.
And now that's the candlelight meeting too, right?
Yeah.
On Thursdays? Yeah. It's so funny. Like when, you know, I told you I don't hate the meeting, but I don't love the meeting. But it's a meeting, and I respect it. So I love it because it's AA. And I when I would go there and I would see somebody new, like I'd play that trick on them. Like, all right, I'd give them like a lighter. Like, go ahead, go light the candle. And then people don't know, like the candle is just like a little switch, and everybody would laugh. That's how we would know somebody was new. So you started to make friends, or what was the story?
I started to, I think just going every day was very helpful, like to be committed to something, because I was never committed to anything. And in my head, I thought, if I go to a meeting, I'm not going to get high today. I'm not going to drink today, you know? And it did help every time I went, and I shared. It was very helpful for me to share because I was going nuts, you know? And if I got stuff out in the air, I felt a little lighter. I felt a little better. And I would share, you know. It was really hard for me to stay sober. Like I had this compulsion still, you know, like every day I thought about getting high, and I didn't know how I was ever going to stop, you know, like going to a meeting helped, and sharing about it helped, but it was still very clear that I needed more, You
right.
know?
So what was next for you? Did you get a sponsor? You start working the steps?
I got a sponsor really right away. I kind of did everything right away. I was going to meetings. Sometimes I would go to more than one meeting a day. I took a commitment. I did service. I was doing a lot of service in the beginning. I helped set up meetings. I chaired meetings. Or secretariat, whatever it was that they needed help with, I did. I showed up. And I started reading the book with my sponsor.
Right. So when you start working these steps, what was it like for you?
It was scary. I came in on that first step. I knew I was powerless over alcohol. It was very clear my life was unmanageable. And the first step basically tells you, okay, well, you're pretty much screwed. There's not a lot of hope in that step. And that's why we have the rest of the steps, and that's why they're in order. So I came in pretty angry. I didn't know how I was going to come to terms with any kind of higher power. That was what's, seeing that word God on most of the steps really scared me. I was so angry. It wasn't that I didn't believe in God. It was that I was angry at God. I felt like he forsaken me. I felt like, what has he done for me? I was very angry and self-pitying, and and little did I know that that book was basically made for me. It was made for me to find a power greater than myself that's going to help me solve my problem. And I went through the steps the way my sponsor went through the steps. We would read the book every week, and she started telling me that I should start praying, which was very weird for me. It was very uncomfortable, but I did it anyway because I had no other choice. What was I going to do? I said, I'm either going to do this or I'm not, and
did you think that the praying was going to work?
No.
I didn't think so either. When I started, I was similar to you, which is probably why we love each other so much. But like I was doing things, I'm like, this is not going to work, like whatever, but I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the magic, is that, my first sponsor, the guy Andy I was telling you about, who was like I got lucky when I got him that I just happened to pick him. And he was like, a step Taliban. Like, he was crazy with the step work. And like, I remember I had like, I don't know how many days I had, but maybe 90 or something, or a little bit less than 90. And we were talking about the third step or whatever. And he takes me to this Trinity Church downtown Manhattan near Wall Street. He's like, we're going to get on our knees and we're going to say the third step prayer right here in this church. It's like, is that going to bother you because I know you're Jewish? I said, bro, I said, I'll do whatever. I don't believe any of this shit's it's not going to bother me because I don't believe in it, But then lo and behold, a little bit at a time, I was just getting like relief. Was it similar like that to you? Even though like it doesn't, AA looks like it's not going to work, but somehow like you get like these little results.
I think that AA is very powerful. I also think that my life was completely empty because the drugs and the alcohol took everything, and now it was gone. That's what I filled my life up with, right? Drugs and alcohol. Now I have to replace it with something else, right? And there's a lot of room in there. So, doing what was suggested, and just like you, I was like, I'm going to do these steps, but this shit's not going to work. Because my sponsor would tell me, one day you're not going to want to drink. One day you're not going to want to get high. You're not going to want to. I promise. Right. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't believe you. I don't believe that. I love it. I'm always going to want to do it. I'm always going to think about it. Because that's just how I was.
The obsession.
Yeah. So she promised me, and, reading that book and kind of being open, I started to become open because what else was I going to do? I really had no other choice. I gave it a shot. Right. And, reading that book and, knowing that I didn't have all the answers, I was told that I just had to know that she believed in something. And she asked me, do you believe that I believe in this? In a higher power? And I said, yeah, if it's working for you, I guess, I believe you. She's like, well, that's all you need to do, and
because you said you came in on the first step, or you had like an understanding or respect of like, I drink and I do pills and I do this shit and it's fucking, it's bad.
Yeah.
So that part, like a lot of times, sometimes people will understand the powerlessness through pain. They'll be like, dude, I just came out of all this
there was a
pain.
lot of pain.
Right. So, but I was actually, excuse me, I was also like in a lot of emotional and mental pain, sober, like stark raving sober. I was like, I was unhinged. And I was like, I didn't know. And thank God I was a young person and I didn't have like a super established life or whatever, because like I was going to a noontime meeting and it was like, just don't drink till noon. And then don't drink till noon, don't drink till noon. And then after work, I would go to a meeting at night, you know? So, but it was, you had the first step and then your sponsor's like, okay, well, just believe that I believe. And then you got the second step, which is my definition of the second step is like, is it possible? And that's the only thing we really need to know. Is it possible? I don't have all the answers. That's all that we need. And the third step is like, whatever, like you'll really get it. Like eventually I was talking to this kid. Remember I was telling you I'm sponsoring this new guy. And we were sitting in the park the other day and I was smoking a cigar, he's smoking a cigarette. And I'm giving him like the pep rally talk. Like, are you willing to go to any length? Blah, blah, blah. Right. He says, listen, and he says, the only thing is that, you know, I just have one thing. It's like this God thing. That's what people call it, the God thing. It's so funny to me. But I said, no, it's okay. I said, don't worry about that. I said, I promise you, if you do this stuff, he's going to show up.
Yeah.
He's going to, I promise you, he's going to show up. You don't, I'm not telling you to believe in him now. It's not even a thought.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk later. Tomorrow we're going to meet at this meeting. We're going to read it. We're going to take these actions, which is what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know? So then what happens as you start to work your way through the steps? Because next is like, you got to do a fourth step, an inventory. Whoosh.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something happened to me. I had a spiritual, like my first spiritual experience going through, you know, I was so, what was told to me was that, like, just, can you admit that you're not God? Right? Because I was my own God. I was running the show. It was my will all the time. And, you know, she's like, just go with that, you know? And then she told me that I can have my own conception of a higher power, which for me was huge because I never had a problem with my own conception of anything, right? But in my religion, it's like, you can't make up your own God. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
so, you know, it was scary, but it was also like very satisfying because I had my whole life this punishing God, you know? And now I could have a loving God. And I sat down and I thought about what do I want God to be for me? You know, God is love. God is understanding. God is my best friend. I could talk to him about anything. I won't get judged. It's not punishing. You know, so I had to like, you know, really open myself to the idea of God being good instead of negative, you know? And that's what recovery is, really changing everything and changing your thinking and your attitudes and your outlook on things. So I remember doing a third step, right? And I just remember feeling like when people would mention God in the rooms, I wasn't as angry. You know, like as soon as someone said God before, I would shut down.
Repulsed.
I was like, ugh, get away from me, you know? But I was kind of becoming more open. And I just remember one day, this happened to me right when I was doing my third step with my sponsor. You know, I also got on my knees. We said this prayer. She's like, do you feel anything? I was like, no, I don't feel anything, you know? So basically, I just remember driving one day, and I'm in my car, and all of a sudden, I just feel this, like, relief. I feel this relief, and I feel like a weight has been lifted, and I feel like, oh, wow, I don't have to drink today. I don't have to get high today. Like, because I was constantly thinking about drinking and getting high, and I wanted to so bad. And all of a sudden, I had this choice that I never had before. I had this choice. It was very profound for me because I never had a choice. As soon as I thought about getting high, I would go and I would get high, you know, and all this time I'm like doing this by the skin of my teeth, you know, I'm white knuckling it. And now all of a sudden, like, I just felt like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. I could
How
live a
long were you
different way.
sober when this happened?
Maybe 90 days, you know, and it was like a miracle. It was like a miracle for me.
Right on time.
You know, and it was right when I was open to having a higher power in my life. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And I know that doesn't happen for everybody, but that was my experience. And it was told to me, like, all the third step means right now is that you're willing to do the fourth step and the rest of the steps. Because I really didn't, how was I going to turn my will and my life over? I didn't even know what my will or my life was. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what my actions were. So I that experience made me super willing to go through the rest of the steps because it was working.
Right. So what did you find out about yourself in the fourth step that maybe you kind of knew but was like running from?
Everything. There was so much that I had to get out, you know. I think that's like the beauty of the fourth step, where you just let,
you're like holding on.
Yeah, you let all this free. You set it free. You like everything that bothers you. I found out that I was an angry person, and I was a hypocrite, and I was judgmental, and I was, you know, selfish, mostly selfish, you know, because I only thought about myself and what I wanted and how I felt. And I learned, you know, to take responsibility. That's really what I learned. I learned that if I want to be forgiven, I have to start forgiving people too.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, for me, like, one of the things, and it's very important, and it's ringing a bell for me now because you said the word that, you know, I always, what I wanted, like, what I found, like, I was so emotionally needy that there was no want. I needed everything. Mm-hmm. There was no, like, want is like, man, I want this thing and maybe I'll get it. But, like, everything that should have been a want was a need. Like, no, I have to have this. I need this. I need you. I need this. I need this. I need this. There was no wants. And it was like so eye-opening for me. And because I joked about it today at the meeting, I was like, I just thought that I was drinking and I was a prick, you know? But, like, I found out same thing, like how, you know, just how judgmental I was, just about the situations. I didn't recognize humanity in anybody or anything else. Mm-hmm. It was always just like, you know, I judged everything the wrong way. I took everything the wrong way. And there were bad things that definitely happened to me in my life. And I definitely had a lot of misdirected anger or misdirected judgment. Oh, like, no, this maybe might smell like the other thing, so I have to protect myself by doing this. You know, and I was just hurting everybody around me, you know, and it was, I thought, you know, I didn't know it was going to end up like that on paper.
Yeah.
So did you sit down and you went through fifth step with your sponsor?
Yes, I did. I saw a lot of fear, but mostly what that fifth step, first of all, that fifth step helped me understand myself better, but also know that I wasn't alone, because there were things that I had written down that, you know, my sponsor said, well, I did that too, you know, and it made me feel like I'm not the only one, which is a big thing about AA, because you're not unique. You're not the only one. There are people who struggle just like you do. And I learned, obviously, you know, I have some character defects, you know, that I wasn't aware of that other people could see, because I'm always the last to know. But I learned that I had to, like, pick myself up and grow up. Like, I really learned to grow up. That, you know, all these things had happened to me, yeah, and maybe not all of them were my fault, but if I'm still letting them affect me, that's my fault. You know, I can't live like that anymore. I can't afford to be angry all the time, because that's going to lead me back to a drink. Right.
So, like, similar when they say, some things you don't get over, you just learn how to live with it. Mm-hmm. And that's a big difference than holding on,
right,
like we were. So now you have this roadmap. You're like, wow, okay, here's where I am. You're still going to meetings. Your life is starting to open up a little bit. How are things going on in your home at this time?
Oh, they're so much better. You know, my relationship with my mother is better. You know, when I first got sober, she would follow me to the store to see what I was doing, you know.
Really?
Yeah. It took time to regain that trust, but eventually she saw AA was working. You know, if I was in a bad mood, she would be like, well, you don't have a meeting today? Why don't you go to a meeting? You know, my mother's a big fan of AA, big fan.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, it's nice to have that support.
Yeah.
So as you continue on in your journey, so you're working on your, the things that you're working on, but you're also like, you're coming almost like out of a blackout. All right, this is my life. Now I have to do something with my life. So what are your plans? What were your plans at that time? Okay, do I have to start working? Do I have to go to school? Like, how did that come to you?
So I was, the way that I got sober, I was lucky to be able to have that time to really focus on my recovery. I wasn't working. I had quit my job to go to rehab because my job was just enabling my disease, my addiction. So I finally decide, now I guess I was like about 6-7 months sober. I don't remember, but I said I need to get a job, and I found the most perfect job for me in early sobriety. I had like a cute little desk job where, it really was very easy and very I could handle at the time. And, I got a job and I was working and I was able to go to meetings and I was able to continue working on myself.
Oh, it's perfect. So when you started to come, like the dust starts like settling off of you and then you have to finish your steps. So you have like 8 and 9 in front of you. What was that like?
It was, for me, everyone would talk about, that 4th step is so hard and so scary. I was worried about 9 from the minute I sat down in that detox. I was like, I can't do this. What are you, crazy?
Tell everybody what step 9 is.
You made direct amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Listen, this is how I rolled. I didn't know that when you did something wrong to somebody, you apologize. If you were mad at me or if I were mad at you, I just never talked to you again. I didn't know that, I didn't know any other way. You burned me, fuck you, I'm done with you, it's over. I'm never talking to you again. That's was my mentality. And at this point I can see because, that insanity is lifted. I can see the wrongs that I have done to people. I could see my part in things. I could see, that I could try to make things right, but it takes a lot of courage to do these things. But it helps so much. So much of the program is being uncomfortable and getting out of yourself, right? And that really helps change who you are in the long run, because now when you confront these big things, when something happens, little or big, right away, I can, correct it. I can apologize to somebody. I can make things right. I can make my life better, and even like your attitudes and your behaviors towards any situation, whether you're super happy or if you're depressed or you're sad, that it's like temporary, right?
And that there's things that you can do, and we don't know when that clock is gonna click and then you'll be okay again or whatever, but we know that it's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
And that was the freedom for me, because when I was drinking and drugging, that was my life, and that was it, and that was just devastation, and I can't even imagine where I would be now if I would have kept going. Like, how long are you sober now?
5 years and change.
That's a long time.
It's a miracle, believe me.
For somebody who's sitting in a car with a guy swapping Xanax pills.
Yeah.
So madness. So what have you learned about yourself that's most important in maybe the last year of your sobriety, the last year or two?
This is something I learn every day, that I have to keep up front, that I am an addict, I am an alcoholic, I am powerless over this stuff. I can't pick up no matter what. And I know that's ironic, like maybe people know that in their first year, but this is something that you got to know every fucking day. Like you got to know this in your heart. You got to accept it every day, that I am not going to be able to use or drink safely. Even when things are going super good for you, or if things are not going your way, no matter what, you cannot pick up. Right.
Yeah, because sobriety is not always sunshine and rainbows. And I know that just for me. I was telling you before we started, I was like, I'm just coming like out of a depression now.
Yeah.
And it was, it was so bad the other day that I went straight to the gym Because for me, like, everybody finds a way to shake themselves out of themselves. And for me, it's always with exercise, because it's the one thing that I hate to do. People would never guess that, but I hate it. I hate it more than anything else.
Me too.
But I know when I do that one thing that I hate, that I know is good for me, it will spill over into other areas of my life. So I ran to the gym, and, like, you know, my girl was texting me. She's like, did you not tell me that you weren't coming straight home? Like where, basically kind of like, where are you? Because I disappeared for a little while. And not like in an accusatory way, but just in like, hello, are you okay? I was like, I'm sorry, I'm on the treadmill. I know I should have told you before I went, but I did it. And, like, it just made me feel better that I forced myself into those uncomfortable situations, because, like, a sober life is uncomfortable for people like us.
Yeah.
Even when you have everything, when you got the right job or the right partner or the right, like, the only place that I'm 100% comfortable on this earth is inside an AA meeting, that I'm literally whole, you know? So when you get up every day, you say, listen, this is who I am.
Listen, there are days and months can go by where I don't think about it at all, where, you know, I'm very grateful and I'm very happy, and it's not even like a factor, right? And that's the gift. But there are times, because my, because I don't like to feel uncomfortable, and I don't like to feel anything negative. You know, like, I think feelings are a big trigger for me. So when I, feel a certain way, I kind of want to, like, do anything I can to not feel that way right away, But I've learned that I have to go through those feelings. The only way out is through. And, I'm not going to feel like this tomorrow. And I hold on to that, And I tell myself that drinking or getting high is not going to make the situation better. It's only going to make it worse. And that's the sanity, again, that you get from doing this work on yourself, when that 9th step, it's very scary. I've had a lot of people, tell me, fuck you, I never want to talk to you again, and that's okay. I tried. But for me, the biggest experience I had was I had to make amends. I had to write a letter to my father, who had passed away. And he was very sick for years while I was still actively in addiction.
Right.
And I didn't get to see him a lot. Like, I didn't, I really kind of, like, just shut down, and I really wasn't there for him. So I wrote this letter, and I just remember reading it out loud to my sponsor and, to the universe. And I just felt like he heard me, and I felt like I was forgiven. And it was really powerful for me. And that was, like, the most beautiful amends I ever made. Like, I didn't have to go to the beach or read it into the wind. Like, it was just like, I knew my father was with me, and that he's always going to be with me. And I know that he forgives me. And it was very powerful, very powerful.
Right. So what is your spiritual life like now compared to when they first try to get you to take that 3rd step?
My spiritual life it's not a theory. I have to live it, right? No, but for me, it's just do the right thing. Just do the next right thing. Be a good person. God is love. That's what I feel. I try to be the best version of myself. I'm not perfect. I don't do it perfectly. Do I wake up in the morning and pray right away? Not really. Sometimes I do, I'm not very disciplined. That's my issue. But I have been in the past, but I think now it's a little bit harder for me, because I feel like, oh, well, I'm kind of like on this balanced place, right? I'm not as desperate as I once was,
right?
Because I've had some recovery. I've had a taste of it, and it makes, and I'm the type of person that I need pain in order to do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I do keep in mind, like, I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal. I try to show up when I can. I'm there for my family. I do a lot for them. Like, I wasn't that person before. Nobody wanted me around. Like, I was not reliable. My sister has me picking up her kids every single day, all the time. When I was active, I couldn't even. She would never let them get in a car with me. You know what I mean? Like, your life changes and it gets better, and you feel better. You do the right things. Eventually you get some self-esteem, you know? Because I had no self-esteem when I came in here. I was like an empty shell of a person. No self-esteem, so much self-hatred, you know? And now I can honestly say I've learned to love myself, you know? And that's big, because if you're living in your own skin every single day, miserable, hating yourself, you know, who wants to live like that?
Yeah. I mean, I learned how to like myself, and sometimes I love myself, you know, or maybe I learned how to love myself, and sometimes I like myself.
Yeah.
But for me, also similar to you, the way that I describe it when somebody asked me, I forgot when they did, but God used to be a word, but now it's a name. Now it's like something. You know, and it's everything for me.
Yeah.
Because it's all, eventually it says in the book, there's going to be a time when there's nobody around, and it's just you and the drink, or you and you. And you're going to need a power greater than yourself to remind you that you're not alone.
Yeah.
I know, it's incredible. Anyway, look, Liad, incredible job. Yeah, I was looking forward to this all week.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Find us, again, Spotify. There's a Facebook page. What else? Apple Podcasts, everywhere. And we love you all. We'll see you on the flip side. Peace. We want to thank you all for joining us today. And please don't forget to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms. And find us on Facebook, where you can become part of our family. We'll see you around.